All right, Josh Neitz, how's it going
Yes,
today?
sir.
So some of the real quick, I wanted to do a background on real estate for you. When you started, what you've been doing. I know you've flipped houses. I know you've been a realtor for a while. I know you have rental properties. You have all different things going. So can you just give a little bit of who you are, what you do, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. So real quick, played baseball back in the day, my whole life. Finally hung it up in 2009. Enough people told me I wasn't good enough. So I finally hung it up and got straight into real estate just because a few host families I was living with, um, they did real estate, commercial, residential, and I always loved houses and everything about it. And seeing them daily, it was like I have a passion for this and it's the next thing I want to do. So
Yeah.
2009-ish, towards the end of 2009, I got into it at the absolute worst time ever. And basically, I started out knocking on people's doors, getting short sales and stuff like that, getting their deficiencies released. And just a really tough time where 100% 180 from now, where everyone wanted to sell back then, but nobody wanted to buy. So right now, everyone knows we're in the market where everyone wants to buy and no one wants to sell. So complete flip when I got into it. Then right away, my broker, he got signed up with some REO accounts, and we were doing about 50 to 100 properties at a time. So I got a ton of experience and everything on that end, and started to help investors out at the same time. And after a couple properties, me and a buddy who was my mentor at the time, who fast tracked my career 10 years right off the bat,
Yeah.
we're like, why are we helping all these investors? We're finding the property, giving them the numbers, giving them the game plan, what to do, what it's worth on the back end. We're doing all the work and getting a 3% commission. So we're like, let's get some hard money lenders and do it on our own. So we reached out to 4 people. And I actually just looked yesterday. I was just curious. And 2012, actually March 30th, today's March 31st.
Yeah, real
So
quick, it's
yes,
2022 today, just to put it out there.
yeah, so it was a 10-year anniversary. Yeah, 10. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So yesterday was a 10-year anniversary of the first house we purchased as a flip. Got it for 149,500 in South Tampa. And it looks like it's worth well over 600,000 now. But we did well on it. We held it for 1 year and 1 day to avoid the high-end capital gains and all that stuff, to make it, instead of being short-term, it turned into long-term capital gains. And I think we sold it for four something it was. I forget that, or no, upper threes, but we did well on it.
Yeah.
Um, so I did a bunch of flipping in that time from 2012 to 2016, and still being a realtor, but that was kind of my side thing. I did enough to pay for all my monthly bills and everything. And flipping was my main source of income, where we would renovate houses. 100% of the profit we made from that, we would purchase rental properties, because at that time, I mean, we're buying them for 50, 60, 70,000. You couldn't even begin to build properties and stuff at that price. So it was just a no-brainer to us to purchase an asset like that we knew was going to go back up eventually, because everyone needs to live somewhere.
Yeah.
And just started accumulating properties. So we did that to 2016, and then everyone started renovating and doing that, and our spreads just kept getting cut down more and more. So that's when I started my transition back into full-time real estate agent, and been doing that basically ever since. And a little bit of investing. I've switched now. Now the investing is my side gig, and real estate's my full-time job.
One of the things that I always told people, because we talked before, and I've invested, I've flipped houses with somebody. Basically, I was kind of like almost like a worker flipping it, not really inside the deal, but I saw the firsthand of what goes on, which was, it was like I was getting I wasn't getting the big money, but I was learning and I was getting paid at the same time. So it was like going to school for flipping and housing. But one of the things that I always tell people as far as like realtors are concerned, because a lot of people out there, and I told you this before, I can go get my real estate license tomorrow, or, someone in my neighborhood can go get their real estate license, and they've bought 3 or 4 homes in their lifetime, and they used a realtor, and they walk around, and they can go and bring someone into a house and say, isn't the kitchen look great? And doesn't the front yard look at the flowers, and this is a great neighborhood, and I did the comps on the neighborhood, and this is how much it costs, and all of those things that most people can do. But one of the most valuable, the information that I think is most valuable is the fact of someone that knows the costs and the rehab costs of certain things, because a lot of people buy homes, especially in today's market, where the market's high. People don't have to redo their kitchen to sell their house. They don't have to redo the windows to sell their house. They don't have to redo the flooring to sell their house. It's almost as is with almost every house, and there's multiple bids. So how much of an advantage do you think it is having a realtor that knows the ins and outs of the actual house, as opposed to just the comps in the neighborhood and just the area of real estate?
That's a great point. So back in the day, back in the early 2000s and before, an agent was basically, they would provide you all the data, the comps and stuff like that. And that was huge value because we don't have the technology, the Zillows, the realtor.coms back then. So now you're right. Buyers, sellers, they can go pull that stuff up on their own and get a good feel for what prices are and stuff like that. Now I feel like real estate's kind of shifted where not only do you provide that information, but now we're kind of like, we gather all the information. We need to do more studying on the back end of where the market's going, what areas are taking off, stuff like that, and interest rates, exactly, renovations. Does it make sense to spend $20,000 to renovate this kitchen? Or can you sell it as is right now? And in this market, yeah, you might get a $2,000 or $3,000 ding. So
Yeah.
I always tell people when I meet with them, I'm like, let me come over first before you do one single thing, because it makes no sense right now in this market to throw money at something that you're not getting dollar for dollar back.
Yeah.
But yeah, an agent has kind of shifted roles now where, yes, we're the educators. We help out with the renovations, telling them what to do. And it's just a different hat we wear as opposed to spitting out numbers like before.
Yeah.
And
So right now, there's a lot going on with interest rates going up, and you can't, especially in the market of Florida where you are, and probably all over the country, but especially in a hot market, this, Sun Belt, or across the, some of the southern states like Arizona, Texas, Florida, and so forth. It is an absolutely insane market. People think that it's going to go down at some point. Should I wait? Should I buy? If somebody's actually looking for a house and they don't know where to start, they've never owned a home before, where should they pull the trigger? What is the very first thing they should do?
so the first thing you need to do is basically get with a lender, find out how much you truly can afford, because that's the biggest thing. And the second thing, it's funny, you kind of talked about people, should they buy now? Should they wait? I've had clients, or they're not even really clients, I guess I shouldn't call them, but people say they're going to buy when the market crashes. They've been telling me that for 3, 4, 5 years. Well, the market's more than doubled since then, and they've been paying rent all that time. And some of them have actually gotten priced out of the market now. So yeah, it's just kind of funny that you said, waiting for the market to crash.
Well, you hear that. Yeah. People have been saying that, and they're still saying it now. And it's huge, especially on YouTube and so forth, with people saying, here's the rates are going up, the market could crash. And another thing is like YouTube and these other platforms are national. So, one of the things that I always say is, if you're in San Francisco, it's completely different from a market like what's going on in Phoenix, Arizona, or, Miami or Tampa, Florida, or something like that. I mean, these are two totally different markets because number one, it seems like the values go up beyond belief in some of the California cities, especially, and then they crash even harder than some of the markets around there. And for some first-time home buyers, they get trigger shy, but statistically, as we've seen, real estate, there's not a person that that owns a house right now that bought it from 5 years ago all the way down to 50 years ago that is losing money on their house. Have you met anyone in the last 10 years that's happened?
Well, it's impossible to be upside down on a house right now. It is 100% physically impossible. In Tampa Bay area, Tampa, Pinellas County, we're up 25% from last year and about 35 or 38% or something like that over the past 2 years. So it is physically impossible to be upside down or get foreclosed on right now.
Yeah.
Um, I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, it's just, yeah, what were you going to say?
I have another question. One of the questions is because I talk to a lot of young people and I talk to people all over the place. And I've told people before that I've been, in real estate. You could say I've been in real estate since 2002 rather. And I've bought, sold, made so many mistakes, didn't listen to people. So if somebody's coming to you and saying, look, no matter what age they are, if they're 23 years old, if they're 45 years old, are you able to say, look, let's put together a 10-year, 20-year outlook? If there's a lot of people that just want to buy a home and live in it and live the white picket fence. But there is a lot of other people that say, look, I understand that there's this market out there where I can get a rental property or I can do flips or I can do something. Are you able to sit down with people at different ages and say, listen, what's your goals with this? Because the first home is number one, it can be the hardest, it can be the most frightening. But then some people say, look, I can, I kind of like this. I want to move into a different direction. So do you work with people where it's like you got them their first home and you're like, go back to them and say, hey, look, are you interested in getting into rentals? Are you interested in getting into something bigger and better, and kind of set up a plan with them to move forward in real estate investing?
Definitely. I think that's the most important thing. And one of the, excuse me, one of the most important things I think to do is sit down and come up with a game plan. What is your use for the house? And to get back to the earlier point real quick, people, worry about the market going down 5% or 10% and they're losing money. You're not losing money if you're living in the house and it's a place you're going to own for a long time, maybe
Yeah.
forever, pass it down to your children. I mean, what a better thing you can do than to pass down a property and help them accumulate wealth. So yeah, you don't lose money. Like people are too worried about, oh, it might go down 5% or 10% or something. That was back on that point. But back to what you're saying there, yes, I think it's so important to have a strategy as to what you're trying to do. Had a client about 6 months ago. His wife was pregnant. They wanted to buy one house now. And then when the baby was about a year old, they want to purchase another house and rent out the one they're in now. So we cater that into, draw the lender in. We say, okay, here's how much money you're making. Here's kind of the plan of attack you need to do. Here's how much you need to save. Don't get too much credit or buy extra, like cars, like make sure you're on the right path on being able to execute on the next step of what you're trying to accomplish. Some people are just happy with living in one house and not having rental properties, totally fine. And as far as that is, I mean, who cares if the market goes down 7%, 10%, even 15%? I don't see that happening at all. But if it does, who cares? Because if you wait 1 or 2 years for that to happen, interest rates right now, even though they're going up to over 4%, they're still at historic lows. Whereas back in the day, they were 12, 15, even 18%. So as interest rates continue to go up right now, the Fed's raising their interest rates. It doesn't mean real estate actually correlates with that. So if the Fed raises it 0.25%. It doesn't mean interest rates are going to go up with real estate with that. They'll go up a little bit probably, but it's not a direct correlation. So if you're saving, yeah, maybe prices go up a little bit more, maybe down a little bit more, but you're going to have more buying power if you purchase now with a lower interest rate. And to kind of hit on numbers real quick, I love numbers because I mean, numbers don't lie. So if you're looking at February last year, houses that were in the price range of 200 to 250,000 were down 68% in that price range of inventory. So 68% of houses in that price range you can't buy anymore. So now we get to the affordability thing where those people who said they're going to wait a year or two, they only make enough money to purchase in that area. Now they can't purchase because 68% of houses are gone. And the 32% that are left, there's so many people fighting for that on top of with investors paying cash.
Yeah.
In the range of 250 to 300,000, that range is down 43% in the past year. So it's just affordability is a true issue, and people need to act, I believe, now. Another factor, one still really bullish. I'm here in the Tampa Bay market, Pinellas, Hillsborough County, and our inventory is at 18 days. A fair market between buyers and sellers is 180 days. So we're 10 times greater for a seller right now.
What does that mean? It's at 18 days. What does that mean?
So there's 18 days of inventory. So for all the buyers out there looking, there's only 18 days of inventory. So which means hardly any houses for buyers to purchase.
So if every buyer out there wanted to purchase today, they would only have 18 days to get something. Is that what?
Well, no, that's 7 days. So there's only of amount of houses on the market right now, I guess is a better way to say it. Of the houses actually on the market right now that aren't under contract, there's 18 days supply of housing.
Yeah.
Whether it be single family or townhouse. Whereas a fair market is there's 180 days, and back to the days 4 years ago where you go look at 4-6 houses in a day, talk about it for a day or two, and then write your offer and negotiate. Now you have to look at it in 2 hours to a day, write your offer that night, and it gets accepted in the next day or two, or you hope to. You're with 10 or 15 other people. But it's just the basic laws of supply and demand. 180 days is fair, and we're way down here. We keep going down. We were at 25 days, then we were at 23 days. Now in February, we were down to 18 days. So the trend is actually trending in the seller direction, not the buyer direction. So
another thing that's crazy is, being, no matter what market you're in, it used to, 20 years ago, let's say, or however many years ago, even 10 years ago, people used to say, well, my job is in, Idaho, so that's where I'm moving. And my family lives over here. And so I don't want to stay there, or, these type of things. And now, especially, people are like, okay, what kind of lifestyle do I want? And that's where I want to move, because I'm not in the office anymore. I mean, I'm talking to people where applications for jobs, and I don't know if you follow this at all, but where jobs used to get 100 applications, they're now getting 20 if they are a job where you actually have to go to the physical location. So applications are down on jobs where you have to go to the physical location, as opposed to applications for people that can work at home are up. So people do not want to. What's that?
Do you see the model changing at all, or
I
do you
don't
think
see
it's
it.
changing?
No, I mean, personally, I don't see it changing, because for some reason it's like online classes. Like, I would never have wanted to do online classes because I would have fell asleep at the computer. But
Do you meet girls too back then, huh?
yeah, exactly. I mean, you want to get out there and meet people. But today, it seems like the trend is that people are meeting people through different ways. So if you work from home and you like to play volleyball at night, you go join a volleyball club. You don't care about going and meeting people in your office and hanging out with them. It's like, I can meet people in different ways. I mean, I can date online, I can do meetups, or I can go to the local whatever and hang out with people. I don't have to go into the office, and I can get my laundry done, and I can pick up the kids, and all of these things that especially parents couldn't do back in the day. You get a phone call from the school, and if you're at home and you're working from home, you can just shoot over to the school. Your kid's sick, you can pick them up, bring them right back home, as opposed to, you're 45 minutes away in the office and you're in a meeting, and then you have to call your wife, or, all these different things. So I don't see that trend switching. So especially the hot areas, it seems to me, where people are waiting to purchase, they're doing themselves an injustice. Because like you said, if the market even goes down, if there's a blip, if they're in it for the long term, short term, everything stinks. I mean, it seems like it's hot, like day trading, like get in, get out, make your money. But for so many different purposes, it seems for me like the long-term trend, especially in real estate, is the way to go. Do you agree?
100%. And also people forget about too, say you're like, I'm going to wait a year or two until it cools down. In that year or two you're waiting, you're paying towards rent towards someone else's property. So now say 100% of your rent doesn't go, or your mortgage payment doesn't go to the principal. If you're doing a 30-year, maybe you start out at 30% going. So if your mortgage is 15, let's say 2,000, just for easy math, at least $600 a month of that is going towards your principal now. So over the course of 2 years, that's 612, say roughly 14 or 15,000 is paying down on the principal. So yeah, maybe the market drops $15,000 or $20,000. Well, you're in the exact same boat, but now you're paying a higher interest rate, and you've lived in your own place. You're not worried about your landlord like looking over your shoulder, like, is he going to sell this month? Is he going to sell this year? Do I have to move again? So yeah, it doesn't make sense to me, but I mean, I'm in it every day, so it seems ultra clear to me. Whereas an outsider, it's just they hear on the news that sales are down this month. We've been down the past 2 months. Sales have been down, or closed sales of real estate properties.
Yeah.
Well, the reason why is because of the supply. We just have less supply. If you actually look at the numbers, I was telling you, inventory, we're actually have less inventory right now than before. So it's even more of a bullish seller market. But the media, if you just listen to a quick bit of the media saying real estate sales are down for the second month, you think, oh, the market's actually heading in a bad direction in housing. But actually, if you dig deep into the numbers and actually analyze them, it's actually saying the exact opposite thing. So that's why
you can't sell 10,000 umbrellas at the beach if you only have 100, right?
Exactly.
Even if it's a really sunny day.
And that's the good thing and the bad thing about the internet is there's so much information out there nowadays. You don't know what's real, or if you just hear a quick snippet of something, there's more layers to it, and you can spin a lot of things. And like I said, that stat I keep hearing the past month, and I'm having dozens of clients and friends and people reach out. They're saying, hey, is the market really going down? I'm like, no, that's just, they're saying closed sales. And then I get into a little bit more about, yes, closed sales are down, but inventory is actually down. So that's why closed sales are down.
That makes sense. I that's something, that I keep hearing. But, especially on YouTube and different things, you're going to get views if you're extremely bullish or extremely bearish. There's nobody who is just flatline saying, well, I'm not really sure, things should be okay. Nobody likes to listen to that. They want to know, things are going to explode, or things are going to drop because, I want to buy, or I have so much real estate, I want to hold on to it. There's one question that I wanted to ask you, which I think is a pretty cool, somewhat, I don't know if it's a trend, but I've heard it. And I wish I would have done this back in my day. And that's young people. So for somebody who just maybe they graduated from college, or maybe they have a job, and we always saw the first time home buyer, you see like the couple going in, and you can tell they're young, and this is most likely their first home, and they have that look on their face. But I'm seeing some people two people, just friends, getting together and saying, hey, look, we're renting here. This is crap. Why don't we try to get in on a house together, and then we can keep that and be a partnership, or we can sell it and move on and keep the capital and be able to buy on our own, instead of renting somewhere and the two of us are spending 15,000 a year. That's 30,000 out of pocket. Is that a trend that you see, or is that just something I'm hearing?
No, you're actually correct. So like in real estate, whenever you're writing the contracts, you actually know your buyer's situation, or when you're the seller and I'm reviewing all the contracts, I never pay that much attention to the names or whatever, but you do notice a lot more now than ever that the last names are different. And it's not my business to dig into it. But yeah, a lot more last names are different where they're doing that. And I do have more clients myself where, yes, two people are saying that to either live in, or even they're trying to grow their wealth a little bit more. And they're saying, hey, we can partner up and get more properties because we think they're going to appreciate more, diversify a little bit. Let's do one like this together. They do a partnership, and then later on down the line they do another one. And there's a lot of creative programs out there right now where if you're buying a property for as an investment, you don't even have to show docs anymore if you put 25% down and you can show that the property is bringing X amount of return. So it's a bigger trend, and mortgage companies are okay with it and supplying the money if you put down a good enough percentage. So say you only have, you want to buy a $300,000 house, you have to do 25% down, that's 75 grand. A lot of people don't have 75 grand sitting around, but you want to jump in, get a rental property, you want to be able to depreciate it and just accumulate wealth. Well, but you have 40 grand sitting around, you have a buddy with 40 grand, come together, form an LLC, purchase the property, and boom, you have a rental property. So it's a trend, you're correct, that is definitely on the upturn right now.
Yeah, it's funny because this is where like a real estate agent really comes into play. Like I said before, when the real estate market gets hot, even me, who's not in the real estate game per se, I'm not a realtor. You hear your neighbor just got their realtor license, someone wants to become a realtor, all these different things. And I would think that, in the future of being a realtor is putting these packages together, of, hey, listen, oh, you, like, two people show up at your office or give you a call and say, hey, look, we're 22 years old. We have $10,000 each. Where do we go from here? We just rented for 3 years and we got smoked on our rent. It keeps going up. We want to be able to purchase something. And I think that's a really good trend. And I think it's good for the younger people to start to understand the business, to partner up with people and to actually learn how to do it the correct way, as opposed to just, oh, we want to buy a house, and then they get a realtor and the realtor says, yeah, do you want this thing? And then they, somehow just purchase the property. I think it's a real business that they could get into at a young age if they did it correctly and they understood it was a business. And
Exactly.
yeah.
And it solves the affordability issue. So if you just have to put 3% or 5% down, but the purchase prices have increased a lot, like we said. So the bank's saying, hey, we'll only give you a loan for 200,000 or 225. Partner up with a buddy who has good enough credit score. Now, boom, your buying power's up where you need to be, 400,000, 350, whatever range. Purchase a price, and if it's a primary residence, you only have to do 3 or 5% down, and that helps solve the affordability issue. Then later on down the line, you want to get another property and stuff like that, you can continue to go in that direction. But like you said, it's a good thing for young people. And in that 25 to 34-year-old age bracket, that's the next biggest bracket of people getting ready to enter the housing market now. So they're just now accumulating enough money, job security, things like that. They're getting ready and starting to enter the housing industry now, and it's going to be another explosion. And it's a great tool for them who, if they're not married or engaged, team up with somebody, get your first property, and start accumulating wealth and not having to rely on living with family or renting from somebody. And yeah, start to create a portfolio and yeah,
Yeah.
right upon.
So where do people get in touch with you besides your phone that you probably do not want, to put up on the screen or anything? I wouldn't certainly, but are you big? Can they contact you? Obviously, they can contact you through comments on YouTube and stuff like that. They can contact you. Are you big on Instagram? Are you big on Twitter? Do people contact you through their email?
So I'm getting so I'm 42, which I feel like I'm 22 still mentally,
Yeah.
full of energy and everything. I'm getting more into that side. Before I'm like, let me just focus on what I do. But now I'm realizing, hey, I need to embrace the Twitter and that stuff. But I'll just start with my email address for now. And as I start to pump into that more, I do have a full-time assistant. She's going to start helping me more with that, just because you only have so many hours in a day. And I'm constantly on my phone helping people, working with people that I don't have time to manage that side of it. But yeah, my email address is the best one. My last name, first name, Neitz, and as in November, EITZ, Josh@gmail.com. That goes straight to my phone, obviously, always on that too. So,
Yeah. Put that in the description. But yeah, I mean, it seems that there's a lot of people I talk to that want to get involved. And here's one other question that I want to ask you. So let's say somebody is in the older range, the 40 and 50-year-old range, and they kind of missed the boat of the last 20 years, which is it's heart wrenching for certain people. They thought, I've been in my corporate job. This guy down the street bought 5 houses 15 years ago, and he's laughing at, the barbecue last week. And is it too late for them to get in? What can they do? What is the difference between, obviously the difference between somebody who's 23, 25 is time, but another difference between somebody who's older could be money that they have saved and so forth. So if somebody who is 40 years old, let's say, who said, okay, now I want to get started in this, and what would be the starting point for them, especially for somebody that owns a house, let's say, and wants to get into rental properties or buying another one? What would they start? Where would they go?
yeah. So the first thing again is just consulting with two people. You're an agent to give them idea about what your local market's like, and then also just important a piece is your lender. So with someone who's never been in the market and they've just been afraid or just weren't in the position, they're the toughest one I have, and they're very resistant because they remember when gas was $1.50 a gallon. They just remember prices way back when, and they just keep seeing it go up and up, and they think, man, it's so expensive. But if you look over hundreds and hundreds of years of real estate, it has been just a constant, steady up for the most part. There's been little dips here and there, but trend line, it is constantly up. And I don't see how it doesn't continue to do that forever, as it's been tried and true forever. So they just got to get over that fear factor and just say, hey, I'm paying X amount a month in rent. Let me just put it towards myself, put it towards a property that I own. Maybe I have family, something like that, or even a friend that, I can pass it on down to later on. Or if you live to be 60, 65, 70, you're on a fixed income, then, hey, now you don't have that housing factor to worry about anymore. So now you're in a great position where you don't have to worry about that factor, and you can live a little bit more and vacation more instead of just being tied to your house, only being able to spend a certain amount of money, not go do fun things, eat out, and things like that. As far as the person looking to do a second property, again, yeah, you just got to get in touch with an agent or a lender and really sit down and come up with what you want a realistic game plan to look like. Do you want to own just one more property, three more properties, and maybe you backdoor it saying, I want to have a income stream of an extra $2,000 a month starting in 5 years or 10 years or 2 years. How do I do that? And then you just work the equation backwards. But you have to know where you're going first before you start your plan. And same thing with people selling right now. It's crazy to me how they just all done sudden one day say, all right, I'm selling my house next week. And you think you need some kind of game plan, as far as what you're doing before you just make these big decisions on a whim. I feel like people spend more time researching phones, computers, TV, stuff like that, as opposed to their biggest asset for most people, which is their house and purchasing real estate. So it's something people really need to take serious. There's way more implications, and just a lot of tax reasons. I mean, a lot of people don't even know if you live in a house for 2 of the last 5 years, it's your homestead property. You don't have to pay capital gains on $250,000 if you're single, $500 if you're married. I got a couple I just met with Monday where they were getting ready to sell their townhouse, and they'd owned it for a year and a half. October 8th is the 2-year date. And I was like, no, guys, we need to wait till October 9th for the closing date, because if not, it's going to cost you about $65,000 in capital gains tax. Whereas if we just wait an extra 3 months, put the property on the market, you've just made that much more money, and the market might go up another couple percent. So there's so many extra little things that people don't think about, realize, or know unless you talk with a professional.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest thing, is spend the time, talk with a professional. If you're buying, it's free. It's an absolute no-brainer. You don't pay realtor fees when you buy. All those are taken out on the seller side. So it's an absolute no-brainer not to utilize the resources of realtor, and then a lender to talk to them is free too.
And the last thing I'm going to ask you, I wrote down 3 things that I thought were the big mistakes that I've made in real estate, and they might be big for everyone. The one thing was not purchasing your first home. That I purchased my first home when I was 28 years old. Imagine if I did it when I was 18, and I did it with a buddy. I actually lived in an apartment with a couple. Well, I lived in a house with a bunch of guys, and then I went to an apartment with one guy, and it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And it's like, okay, we're paying whatever. And then, you're moving around and you're not building any equity. So that was my number one, was like, I wish I had somebody, an uncle, a parent, whatever, saying, just purchase your first house, move in someone else to rent. I mean, my friend could have rented from me, or I could, whatever, split it with him. The second thing was selling while being in a stable market. Like you said, the tax advantages, the income increase that you could get from rents as time goes. I mean, rents used to be, $400 a bedroom, and now they're $700 or whatever it may be. So as a stable market where, people are constantly want to live there and so forth, that was my number 2 mistake, selling a property in a stable market. The third mistake was, and this is the biggest one that I made, because this was during pre-2008, was borrowing against the home for things that weren't buying another home. So for instance, if I was borrowing and I was purchasing another home, doing a HELOC or whatever it was to buy another home, that would have gained me way more money. What I did, and I didn't get into it in the video, is I borrowed against the home and started a shoe business that was importing shoes from Brazil. And yeah, I mean, I tell this story.
You know about the shoe business that made you wanted to jump into that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I tell people, people are so interested in this because I went to Brazil for a month and a half, and it was like, you see these movies about the drug guys going down to find drugs in like Colombia, like a dealer. That's what I did with shoes with my partner. We're going around trying to find shoe companies, to sell to us, to import into the United States. What I didn't realize was the upfront cost with that is traveling down there, purchasing, tariffs or whatever they are, the import costs of doing that, the trade shows that you have to go to, the amount of, the traveling trade shows, the sales and so forth. And so it was a complete wash. I mean, I basically just like, let me get rid of the inventory that I had. And
Right.
I lost all that equity, and I sold the house and cleared off all my debt. And I felt good about that at the time. Now, looking back on it, I'm like, it's a complete, do not borrow against your house and do something stupid like buy a cool car or start a business that isn't income producing. That was my biggest mistake. And then of course selling, when you don't have to in a stable market. And the one thing is waiting to purchase, or at least I always tell people, listen, it doesn't cost you anything to speak to somebody. And if they get tired of speaking to you, go to the next person. They just so you go to a realtor and they say, oh gosh, this guy's never going to buy. He's asking too many questions. There's 5 million realtors out there. Somebody's going to, want to take you seriously, and you want to purchase your first house. You don't want to wait on it. So that's my top 3. What do you
Yeah.
say?
No, I say that's great. And like you said, if real estate's the one thing where it is pretty easy, in a couple months you can get your license, stuff like that. So who you work with really does matter. Talk to the first person. They're not giving you the attention you need. They're not actually coming up with game plans and really giving you useful information. Move on to the next one. That's such an important thing. You can sidetrack, like your example. You told me it yesterday, so I researched it. I'll make you sick, but you bought that house for 100,000, sold it for 190,000, which looked good, and right now it's worth over $430,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you would have had a mentor, someone who's been through 10, 15, 20 years
Yeah.
of knowledge in the industry, why the heck would you not reach out to the best or the top people to do it? They're more than happy to work with you.
Yeah.
I've never met someone, at least not a successful person. I haven't met a successful person saying, oh, I don't want to work with you,
Yeah. Yeah.
And find someone who genuinely cares about you as a person. With our brokerage Next Home, that's what our biggest thing is first. We call it humans over houses, where we actually care about the individual first, and the house is a byproduct. We're helping them get houses, but work with that person who's trying to better you, give you useful information, not just run around with you real quick, throw you in something, and then move on to the next person. Make sure they spend the time to talk about things,
Yeah.
get your game together, and move forward. So I think that's the biggest thing. That's my one thing is just, get with the right person who knows what they're doing in your area,
And get a
and
game plan.
let them coach you, educate you, and get rid of 5, 10, 15, 20 years of expensive mistakes you're going to make.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the same boat as you. When I started out, I had no clue on information on taxes and the back end of the financial side. I just said, hey, let's renovate houses, let's make money. And then I realized I made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of mistakes, that if I'd have done this or that, or wait this long, put it here, do this, that I would have got to keep that money. And when you're stroking those checks, it hurts. It's expensive, expensive mistakes. So
Yeah. It's a
someone
doctorate degree in real estate. We have to go because our time is up, but we should do this again, and definitely I think it helps people, and a lot of information was given out. So thanks, man. And let's do this again sometime pretty soon.
Definitely. Thank you for having me. And look forward to watching your channel more and more things you bring.
All right. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.